Well, hello there, ladies and gents. Welcome back. Much has changed since last we spoke. Most importantly, the fact that we've found a home. And this is my new hometown. A pretty little square that I didn't know existed. Well, I never. And I think you'll agree, it's a lovely little town. You look at the state of that church, and it's even got a castle. Yeah, I've never lived in a place that had a castle before. But the home search was, to be honest, a far from relaxing experience. We'd kind of imagined that we were going to land on the island fresh off the boat and stumble into a massive choice of places, greeted by an army of estate agents desperate to get a hold of our dirty, dirty money. But the reality was somewhat different. I mean, first off, the prices have climbed somewhat since we first investigated the feasibility of this little adventure. Secondly, although there was a fair bit of choice, we primarily used the website Idealista to search out our prey, promptly fired off 10, 20, 30, I don't really remember anymore, but a whole bunch of contact messages to various estate agents, owners, property developers, and for 2 whole weeks, nobody replied. Not a single sausage. So for 2 whole weeks, we sat there assuming that either the system wasn't working and we'd have to go back to the drawing board, or that people just hated us. But in any case, yeah, 2 weeks passed, nobody got in touch with us about any of the properties, and then I had to go to Geneva for a job for 2 weeks, so another 2 weeks passed, so we're already a month down and we've got no potential leads of where we're going to live, and we only booked our temporary accommodation for 2 months. So not a great start. But then for some unknown reason, maybe it's just me, maybe it's my name, I don't know, but the missus recontacted all of the same people, and then suddenly we had this massive influx of responses and replies from people, and before you know it, we had 3 or 4 appointments to view flats in the first week. Our first one was in a really pretty little town. I would say probably prettier than the one we're living in, mainly because you can see the mountains from the front yard, with a really cute little 85-year-old grandma. And impressed with us, we managed to do the whole meeting, the whole viewing in Spanish, although also, bearing in mind what I just said about being able to see the mountains, this place is already in its own little mountain range. I mean, I'm literally 7 minutes from my front door right now. I've actually landed in heaven. This is what I've dreamed of my entire life. I've been a biker that's always lived in the flattest places on earth. Grew up in Cambridge, flat as a pancake. Moved to Hamburg, flatter than a stack of steamrolled pancakes. Yeah, but anyway, we looked at this flat. The lady was really sweet. She had a really nice reaction as well when we told her what we did for jobs. I said I was a singer. The missus is an online journalist. And she just went, "Oh, what wonderful, lovely jobs. I'd be happy to have you come and stay in my flat." So we thought, wow, 1 shot, 1 kill, we've nailed it. And then started to realise that it wasn't quite so perfect, because for a start, she lived next door. Doesn't sound all that awful, but we've been through that situation before. Oh, first vista. Mountains and sea at the same time. Love it. But yeah, you just have this feeling that you're being watched the whole time. And then it obviously very quickly dawned upon us that the apartment was furnished, which isn't great, because we've got a great big sofa in Germany that we wanted to get shipped over, and she had this horrible little stain-flecked student-style hideous sofa that both of us would barely fit on. And when we said, "Here, love, what about this sofa?" Because we've got one in Germany, you see. It always makes you wonder if it's innocence or if they're actually just taking the piss. But she just went, "Well, you don't need one. There's one right there." So, yeah, question answered there. The sofa wasn't going to go, and we weren't going to be happy living with the sofa. But obviously the sofa isn't anything to lose an apartment over. But next up was the fact that to get to the washing machine, which was on a roof terrace, sounds romantic, but hold your horses. You had to climb through a window which was about thigh height. She, impressively, for an 85-year-old lady, showed me how to do it. I mean, she was also about knee-high to a grasshopper. Skipped through there like it was nothing. But for me to get through and fold my limbs and things in wasn't quite so smooth. So that was a bit of a pain. The views are splendiferous. And then add on to that the fact that the parking situation in this place was an absolute tragedy. It was awful. We had to park about 400 meters away from the flat, and even that was difficult. When we mentioned that to her, hoping that she'd say, oh, there's a garage, or you could get yourself a garage, or something like that, she just went, well, there's a public car park over by the main road, which is about 500 meters that way. And then in my mind, fast forward to me having a gig, needing to haul my speakers, my guitar, 500 meters through 30-degree sunshine on a Mallorcan August Sunday, and I'm not up for that. How did I not know that this was on my doorstep? And also, at 6 o'clock in the evening, it's completely empty. Basically got a twisty little mountain pass all to myself. I say mountain, I think it's about 600 meters high. A mountainette, if you will. Yeah, so we walked away from that flat. I have reached the Ermite de Bethlehem. In for a penny, in for a pound. Let's have a look. That's right, boys and girls. This is where we live. This is my house. Surprise! Oh, little church of Bethlehem. I did have a different plan in mind for this little expedition, but this was a very nice segue that I'm glad I took. I can see this little stretch very quickly becoming my little test run. Anyway, where was I? Yes. It very quickly became apparent to us that the norm here is for rental apartments to be fully furnished, which, on the face of it, sounds quite good, especially for like us who came over with very little, but we very quickly realised that that meant you're basically beholden to the tastes and styles of the person renting the property, which sadly are not always the best. We've seen some seriously ugly shit. So fast forward another week, and another tasty looking flat popped up in the interestingly named Colonia Sant Jordi, which was literally front row balcony looks onto the sea. Again, we thought we'd struck gold, partially because the estate agent was German, so we had no problem with communication. The town is cute, the location was incredible. I imagine being able to have a coffee on your balcony and then literally just step out of the front gate and jump in the sea. That would have been our life. But again, fully furnished with a pretty nasty sofa, but we were willing to overlook that because it was by the sea. I mean, you've got to compromise, haven't you? But when we said to them, we're a couple, we don't intend to have any kids, so the double single beds in the spare room are kind of a bit useless to us. Any chance that we could get rid of those and use it as an office instead? And then the, at first, apparently friendly, although somewhat terse, estate agent said to us, I'll mention it to the owners. Oh, and by the way, there's the matter of my commission, which is 1 month's rent plus 21% VAT. Now, the Spanish government passed a new law recently whereby for a long-term rental, the tenant isn't allowed to be charged any fees whatsoever. So we relayed this back to this estate agent and said, I think you'll find we don't have to pay that commission. That's the responsibility of the owner. So next morning we woke to an email from Birgit, the estate agent, saying, screw you guys, the owner's gone with someone else. Obviously the words were slightly different, but the meaning was the same. So it seemed, once again, inflexibility about furniture, but then a new problem of this commission that nobody's allowed to charge, which apparently everybody does. And it very quickly became clear to us that it was a case of, if you don't pay this bribe, because that's essentially what it is, then the flat's going to go to someone else, because if you don't pay it, the owner has to pay it, and they're just going to choose somebody who's willing to pay it for them. So that soured our mood. We'd let another flat slip through our fingers, and we were also a bit miffed and deflated about the state of the whole system, with the feeling that if we didn't play along to the corrupt rules, we were going to end up homeless. So anyway, this trend continued of finding really nice flats with really ugly furniture, estate agents that didn't want to speak to us. We had one, in fact, chatted with this estate agent on WhatsApp, which is apparently the way they do business over here. Lots of questions about us, lots of questions about the apartment. They changed the time of the appointment 3 times, and then eventually, on the night before we were due to go and look at this apartment, we get a message saying, the owner's decided he wants the flat to go to a local couple. He hasn't found the local couple, he's just decided that it's not us. So, this is a local flat for local people. So then we contacted the estate agency from which we've actually rented the place we're in now, and they responded almost immediately with a WhatsApp message, asked us a few questions about ourselves, and then proceeded to ghost us for a week and a half. And it wasn't until, in a desperate act of holy shit, we're going to end up living in a tent on the beach, that I had the idea that we text her and mention that although we're foreigners, we would be willing to pay the rent 1 year in advance to secure the property. I mean, that's the closest I've ever got to going big balls all in a poker game. Strangely enough, she almost immediately replied to us and was suddenly more interested in having us look at this place. So we arranged a date to see it, and we still had a couple of other places to look in the meantime. We looked at a little 3-bedroom house in Banyal Bufar, which looked like it was probably from the early 1800s. It was cute, but it was small and it was damp. We also looked at a really nice new build little apartment with a pool in the garden. Everything was really new, really fresh, and the rent was recently reduced, so that was playing into our favour. And also, the estate agent we met even specifically mentioned the fact that this commission wouldn't be our problem because by the law that goes to the owner. So yeah, it seemed all good, but counting against it was the fact that the town it was in was completely dead, in the middle of butt fudge nowhere, but also there was no parking. And although it was nice that it had a pool in the back garden, it was a back garden that had an 8-foot high wall around all sides. So kind of felt like a prison swimming pool, if such a thing exists. So then there were a couple of soulless apartments in Manacor, which is Mallorca's second city, plus a hideous house in Colonia San Pere. Nice enough place, but the house was in such a shit state. And then came the turn of looking at the flat that we're in now, and it was 85% love at first sight. The place was good. It was fully furnished, but it was nice enough furniture that we could live with it. And when we asked her to get rid of the beds from the spare bedroom, no problem whatsoever. Of course we can. There was no washing machine, which we pulled a frowny face at, and then the owner said, no worries, I'll get you a washing machine. She was happy to give us a reduction on the rent because we were going to pay a year in advance. All good. But then things got a bit strange, as first of all, the estate agency said they'd give us the contract after we'd paid their fee. There's that fee again. We argued the fee with them a bit, and eventually we just reached an impasse with them saying, this is actually your second home because you've already got a home in Germany and that's where you're registered. So until you're a resident here on the island, you have to pay the fee. Not sure if that's absolute cod shit, but it became wildly apparent once again, if we didn't pay this, I was going to say the German word for a bribe then, because it's such a good one, Schmiergeld, smeary money. Yeah, if we didn't pay this fee, we weren't going to get the flat, and we were running sharply out of time. So we paid the fee, kind of thinking, could well be that that's money gone, maybe it's all a scam. They took a fashionably long time to give us the contract, to the point where we were thinking, all right, maybe we should start looking for somewhere else because that money's gone. We've fallen foul to some grifter. Yeah, we got the contract, so read through it, and there was just a myriad of mistakes in this thing. They'd gotten the address wrong. They'd said that the contract was going to run until April the 31st. It was only 30 days in April. They'd also spelt my name wrong. It turns out later on we found out they'd spent the name of the landlady wrong. So just a crazy parade of cock-ups. To the point again where we were thinking, is this real? Would they not put a bit more effort in? Or are they actually just that shit? Even in hindsight, knowing that it was all okay, I'm kind of a bit ashamed of myself that we didn't just walk away because the red flags were tremendous. But then came the next kicker when the very English superior of the estate agency team called us up, spoke to me in proper estate agent accent. That's what they should all sound like, really. I think it should be the rules. Drive a Mini, spiky hair, talk like that. And I explained to her all of the various cock-ups, omissions and mistakes from the contract, including the fact that they hadn't mentioned that we were allowed to use the garage in the contract, which I saw as a potential for an immense con. Oh, what do you mean you thought the garage was included? No, that's extra. But then the kicker was when she explained that with them how it works is we go in, sign the contract a week ahead of when we were due to move in, and on that day we have to pay the full year's rent and the security deposit, which is another 2 months on top, a week before we get a key, before we get access to the flat, before we get anything. So again, alarm bells ringing like crazy. Made even worse, and this is the best bit, the younger girl that we'd been dealing with texted us 10 minutes after having spoken to the boss and said, is it possible you could pay the security deposit in cash? And again, the alarm bells were deafening at this point. The lounge of the little place we were staying in was full of nothing but great big clangers going off, covered in red flags. But what can I say? Desperation makes you do desperate things. The only argument that I had was, first of all, hell you know, we're not paying in cash, and also the fact that because we were going in to sign the contract in their office, in their real premises, at least it looked like they were a real business. Right, I have gone the wrong way somewhere. I wasn't supposed to find a car park. But anyway, long story short, we went into the place, we signed the contract, we shoved an inhuman amount of money into their bank account all in one go, and amazingly, thankfully, and very graciously, the owner gave us all of the keys there and then and said we could get into the flat as soon as we want. A week early, no extra cost, help yourself, off you go. Well, that's a shame. There's a beach down there, and I'm sure on Google Maps I've seen pictures of cars down there as well, but it looks like it's not allowed. Oh well. I guess we won't see the beach this evening then. I mean, obviously I could walk, but it's 1.4 kilometers. Don't really fancy that action in bike gear. But the most important thing about our new place is that it's got a garage, which means not only do we not have to worry about the parking horror that it would be in our hometown without a garage, most importantly of all, it means I've got somewhere to put the bike, and I've got somewhere to get some more garage videos out. Somewhere to store the bike, somewhere to fettle with the bike. Now, getting into the flat was relatively easy, but after we moved in, we promised ourselves that we'd been under a lot of stress doing the bureaucracy, finding a flat. I mean, finding a flat was the biggest one. That was something that we'd lost sleep over. So we said to ourselves, once we get into this flat, we're going to give ourselves a week just to chill out, maybe actually have a little bit of a holiday. Because I kid you not, we've been here for 10 weeks now, and we've been to the beach 3 times. We've not had the time because we've been too busy trying to take care of the important shit to make it so that we can stay. But yeah, back to the tail in hand. We were going to give ourselves this holiday, and then promptly both went down with the flu. Bedridden sick for 2.5 weeks. Couldn't believe it. Finally relaxed, finally let the pressure off, and then both got so sick we couldn't move. We basically watched Netflix dry for 2 weeks and couldn't do anything else. But yeah, so thankfully that's now behind me, but almost back to fighting fitness. Definitely back to riding fitness, because this is only the second time that I've actually ridden the bike on the island since we've been here. So again, just like the beach, 10 weeks in this beautiful location, and I've only ridden the bike twice. Although I'm very happy that the second time turned out to be what it was. But otherwise, in other news, the finger is still on the way. It's not 100%. I mean, I don't think it will ever be 100% again, but it's definitely better than the last time we spoke. I've actually managed to play the guitar a bit more convincingly now. I mean, for those of you who play guitar, the problem I have really is the A-shaped bar chord, because I have to push this finger down flat across 3 strings. Had to be that finger, didn't it? And that really, really hurts. I mean, that joint is still not very happy. But in any case, it's on the mend. I can bend it a lot more freely, but it's still early days yet, so we'll see. And because what kind of an animal would I be if I didn't make good on my promises? There is the beautiful turquoise water of the Mallorcan Med. The water here really is quite incredible. And all just 20 minutes from where I live. Unbelievable. Yeah, so there we go. That's us up to date for now. Flats, fingers, fee-fied. So I think that's where we'll wrap it up. Thank you very much for coming along on this very enjoyable little jaunt. I've literally never had the ability to go for a quick evening ride before. Not one that was worth it. So I'm going to be grabbing that with both hands, including the bendy-fingered one. So until the next time, keep yourself out of trouble, keep yours shiny, and I'll see you out there. Ta-ra.